The babies spend more time looking at the reversed shapes. They know something's going on, and their novelty-seeking minds strain toward it. And the babies that spend more time gaping at the mirrored shapes tend to score higher on math and spatial reasoning tests when they're preschoolers. They're quicker and more accurate at visualizing shapes and what they would look like if rotated or glued together. Me? I lack this ability almost completely. You know the little picture on the credit card machine at the gas station that shows you how to orient the card when you swipe it? That picture is useless to me. It's beyond my mental capabilities to translate that flat drawing into a three-dimensional action. Every single time, I have to run through each of the four possibilities: magnetic stripe up and to the right, magnetic stripe up and to the left, magnetic stripe down and to the right, magnetic stripe down and to the left, until the machine consents to read my card and sell me some gas. And yet geometry is felt, generally, to be at the heart of what's required for real figuring in the world. Katherine Johnson, the NASA mathematician, now well known as the hero of the book and movie Hidden Figures, described her early success at the Flight Research Division. The guys all had graduate degrees in mathematics. They had forgotten all the geometry they ever knew. I still remembered mine. Mighty is the charm. William Wordsworth, in the long, mostly autobiographical poem The Prelude, tells a somewhat implausible story about a shipwreck victim hurled ashore on an uninhabited island with nothing in his possession but a copy of Euclid's Elements, the book of geometric axioms and propositions that launched geometry as a formal subject about 2.5 millennia ago. Good luck for shipwreck guy. Depressed and hungry though he is, he consoles himself by working his way through Euclid's demonstrations one by one, tracing out the diagrams in the sand with a stick. That's just what it was like to be young, sensitive, poetic Wordsworth, writes middle-aged Wordsworth. Or, to let the poet speak, mighty is the charm of those abstractions to a mind beset with images and haunted by itself. Ayahuasca drinkers have a similar take. The drug reboots the brain and lifts the mind above the tortured labyrinth it thinks it's stuck in. The strangest thing about Wordsworth's shipwreck geometry story is that it's basically true. Wordsworth borrowed it, with several phrases lifted intact, from the memoirs of John Newton, a young apprentice slave merchant who, in 1745, found himself not shipwrecked per se, but left on Plantain Island off Sierra Leone by his boss with little to do and less to eat. The island wasn't uninhabited. The enslaved Africans lived there with him, and his chief tormentor was an African woman who controlled the flow of food. A person of some consequence in her own country, Newton describes her, then complains, in a truly astonishing failure to grasp the situation, "This woman, I know not for what reason, was strangely prejudiced against me from the first." A few years later, Newton almost dies at sea, gets religion, becomes an Anglican priest, writes Amazing Grace, which has a very different prescription for what book you should study when you're depressed, and finally renounces the slave trade and becomes a major player in the movement to abolish slavery in the British Empire. But back on Plantain Island, yes, he had one book along, Isaac Barrow's edition of Euclid, and in his dark moments, he retreated into its abstract comforts. "Thus I often beguiled my sorrows," he writes, "and almost forgot my feeling." Wordsworth's appropriation of Newton's geometry in the sand story wasn't his only flirtation with the subject. Thomas de Quincey, a contemporary of Wordsworth, wrote in his literary reminiscences, "Wordsworth was a profound admirer of the sublimer mathematics, at least of the higher geometry. The secret of this admiration for geometry lay in the antagonism between this world of bodiless abstraction and the world of passion." Wordsworth had done poorly in mathematics at school, but formed a mutually admiring friendship with the young Irish mathematician William Rowan Hamilton, who some believe inspired Wordsworth to add to the Prelude the famous description of Newton, Isaac not John, "a mind forever voyaging through strange seas of thought alone." Hamilton was fascinated with